just to give a little bit more context to who Brad, Nisha, and Will are, I just want to say that Brad's an exhibiting artist and muralist, associate professor at my ad. Nisha, I want to basically call her an expert extraordinaire, but more formally administrative coordinator with Reflow. And Will has been a lead assistant artist at Artworks from Milwaukee. I am excited to ask Brad, Nisha, and Will to take it away and see what you came up with.
The bottom line is everyone starts off as a child, and everyone, their formative years of learning are impacting in how they evolve as a adult individual, right? So a lot of our talk has really kind of been centered around the idea of learning while playing, safe play spaces, and really just the traveling of the water, and how just in the metaphor of itself, wherever water travels, life will there follow. And so even if you think about the footsteps of children traveling, chasing water down the stream or whatever, we all can relate to that. And everyone needs safe water to have access to. Everybody needs relevant education to succeed with. And then also that playtime is important in imagination development, even when you talk in terms of artwork and what it does for the community. So I just think this will be a good way to point the arrows in some need to be known directions. So Nisha, go on, take it away. You can get us started here.
All right, Will, if you can go ahead and start presenting. So, like I said, my name is Wanisha Smith. I'm the administrative coordinator for Reflow, Reflow does a lot of water-based projects around the city of Milwaukee, community-based projects. So these two pieces really resonate with me because Reflow is a part of the redevelopment of the two starting and endpoints, or however you want to look at them, however you want to take the walk. So redeveloping both spaces with green infrastructure, with the community in mind, around redeveloping these spaces. And like you said, the flow of the water. So right here you have Benjamin Franklin. You see their playground with a lot of asphalt and blacktop and different things, and we'll get into those. But that's kind of like at the top of the hill. And then you have Novina Park, which is it's the west of where Ben Franklin is, and it's at the bottom. So as we talk about the flow of water, when it rains, we know anyone who lives in Milwaukee in the last 15 years, has seen what flooding has done to our area, so to several different areas and how it's affected them. And this is one of them, the flow of water. So with Benjamin Franklin being at the top and Novina Park, in a sense, being at the bottom of that area. So right here we have a map of how the walk that we took together, and Benjamin Franklin is at the star right there in the Franklin Heights neighborhood. And then as we walk south, you get to Nash, and then you walk west all the way to 27th Street, which is about 2-3 blocks to 27th Street. And then you're going to go north on 27th Street to Melvina. And then you'll cross 27th Street and walk about 2.5 blocks when you get to Melvina Park. So it's not that they're not that far from each other, but these are two very different spaces. And in between those spaces is a lot of history, and a lot of history that not only water has affected, but you can see once we get into it, you'll understand some of that history around the two areas. There's a lot of economics and socioeconomics that has happened in the last 60 or so years. So here we have, like I said, Ben Franklin that's our starting point, the top of the hill. So Ben Franklin has been around since 1912, there's been a school of some sort in this area. And in that time, it was a lot of farmland. So, but there's always been a school building. The actual existing building wasn't built until 1924. So, and there's been add-ons and improvements since then, but Ben Franklin has been around and in the area even before it was called Franklin Heights, before the area was even part of what we now call the city of Milwaukee. So it's a staple in the neighborhood for over 100 years. So Ben Franklin has, over the last several years, they've been really working with Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, their teachers, the neighborhood, the students that go there, around learning about green infrastructure, native plants. So this area is one of the areas that they kind of started with. So this area has had a lot of native plants in it. You can see that tree. We all know trees don't grow. They're not a rapid growing plant. So for a tree to be established in that space, you can tell that that space has been there a while. So they've used it as a teaching tool. Those kids did composting around it. They actually made their own compost to put in there. They learned about the native plants and how important the native plants are for the area, and how just important it is to pick up trash around your area, and keeping our waterways clean and things like that. So this is one of the areas that they've utilized and used.
Yeah, it makes me think about just access in terms of how do you develop a better appreciation, especially when you look at things like 4-H clubs or even scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, a lot of these, youth in some of these areas don't have access to those kind of opportunities sometimes, or may not have the connection to the outlet itself, right? So I think it's great that there's a concerted effort to have an appreciation for the nature as it is in a green space as it exists now. And to think of the bioswale concept in the schoolyard being an advanced version of what you see here.
Yeah.
I think that'll be great.
So Will, you want to speak to how we came up with, once the walk actually, once the markings are actually put on the ground for the walk, you want to speak to how you came up with that design for the Black-Eyed Susan?
Yes, of course. And then I think I want to, right after that, call on Yvonne, because I'm sure that she has a lot to say as well.
Yeah.
So these little symbols will be kind of throughout the sidewalk, following that path that we showed that we walked earlier, from Ben Franklin School to Novina Park. And one of the things that we wanted to focus on for some of these icons is native flowers. So this is just a kind of sketched out idea for one of those stencils. I believe we'll have some of the parts more connected so we can have a single stencil that we can work from. And so this is Black-Eyed Susan, native to Wisconsin, and we have plans to have other native pollinators as well for some of these icons, including birds and certain bugs that help pollinate these plants. And then, yes, Yvonne, I'm sure you have something to say.
I just wanted to add that this space has been there, as well Nisha said, for a while. Our neighborhood association actually partnered with the school and MMSD through one of our activities. We use this space to teach environmental stewardship at the school. So we actually worked with a couple of classroom teachers. We created a curriculum. So the students not only learned about native plantings, but what they can do to help improve our water quality. And so we actually use the water bottles to represent rain barrels, and they were able to decorate those. We did these plantings, these native plantings in this space. We cleaned out some other debris there. But the bottom line was that students not only learned about green infrastructure, but they learned about environmental stewardship, what they could do. They learned about green space versus gray space. We took walks around the community so they would understand the difference between green space and gray space when it comes to water. I think the most telling thing was when we gave them a bag and asked them to go home over the weekend and clean up around their neighborhood. Well, some of the kids brought the bags back to school to show that they actually did the work. So it was very engaging. And Monisha at that time, I think she was an intern at at MMSD. So she actually participated. Wish I had thought about that, Monisha. Sorry, I could have sent you some pictures. So maybe later on you can add those in the offering.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I mean, yes. So there, Ben Franklin, they've had a lot of, they've had community engagement, they've had student engagement around, green infrastructure and learning about it. Because of that, because of them, doing those activities and priming, if you want to say priming the pump in a sense. Ben Franklin is actually a part of Reflow's cohort 4. I believe they're part of 4. Yeah, cohort 4 that will actually undergo a redevelopment of the schoolyard space. So all right here, you'll see their schoolyard and all the, as we talked about, gray area, but gray infrastructure is a different thing. But like you see all this blacktop, asphalt. Some of this will be removed. So Ben Franklin is actually undergoing we call it schoolyard redevelopment. And the redevelopment, that process is not a quick process. It's a 2.5, 3-year process just to get construction done. And in that time, the students, the teachers, the entire school team, community members are involved in green team meetings that go through and understand where asphalt can be removed and where green can be introduced and how that green infrastructure can actually function while still leaving space for the kids to play. So not wanting to just remove all of the asphalt and put in, a big green field per se. We still want to keep some asphalt, but just the trouble spots, don't reduce how many times the teachers say, oh, you can't go outside because it's too icy in the winter, or in the, when it's really raining, there's a lot of puddles and things like that. Just water pooling in one space. And, all these cracks are from water getting down in there in wintertime, thawing and freezing. And, water is the ultimate solvent. So it's going to do its damage over time if you allow it. So Brad, you want to speak to some of the markings on the playground that we recognize?
Yeah, sure. Am I mute? Okay, I'm not muted. All right. Yeah, back to the whole the schoolyard as a place of play and education. I know it's a standard to mark playgrounds or schoolyards with hopscotch, foursquare, and different little schoolyard pavement games that are really quite antiquated, because I don't know if anyone's teaching these kids how to use these markings on the pavement. I mean, maybe they are, but jump rope and hopscotch, I don't know. Are kids still doing that? And then also on top of that, you do have some other markings like the United States map and things of that nature. But a lot of where the idea, the breadcrumbs, so to speak, kind of came to mind for me was just being able to take that opportunity to have a marking on the ground that would allow for some sort of curiosity or indication of some other need to know knowledge, right? So even on that perimeter that you see around the asphalt, was entertaining the idea of maybe having some of those icons what Will is designing and has designed, as far as showing pollinators that would be in the area. And, you know, there might be one on each corner. So what you see there is you kind of see a little icon in the lower right-hand corner. Maybe another icon would be on the next corner, and then on each corner around the perimeter. Had even spoken the idea of having yard sign kind of concept where it would give a definition of what the icon represented, so that you know, people on the walk may see the icon spray chalked to the sidewalk, and then at the end of that block see a yard sign with that same image, and then an explanation of what it represents. So just I guess you could call it grassroots educating, pun intended, but you know, that's really kind of my reflections on the schoolyard. And also to Lanisha's point before, you know, there's no coverage from a hot day in the sun. Even the school as it exists now, that playground equipment is dangerous and needs to be repaired, but it's very expensive to repair. And then there's one shelter, and that's in the upper kind of right-hand corner of the asphalt there, where students can assemble to get out of the sun. So I guess just in my response to the concept of the bioswale being incorporated into the design of the schoolyard, then, you know, make the schoolyard a park, if you will. But there still needs to be some sort of learning enhancements within the structure of that design. And even to some of my earlier ideas of the Rube Goldberg kind of water sculpture attempts to have made, well, Nisha brought to my attention that Starm School actually has that, where the teachers designed something for the students to kind of use seasonally in the schoolyard. So I think as long as there's different, you know, apparatuses or ways of using that space to let play take place and learning at the same time.
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, this space is just outdated. The markings are not really relevant, and do we even know that, you know, because if you go to any schoolyard, you'll see the same hopscotch, you'll see a lot of the same markings, you'll see the same Foursquare. And it's not to say that they're not utilizing it, but it's just that, you know, these spaces are, like you said, they're hot. So can we remove some of that? And anyone that understands the heat island effect knows that when you have this much asphalt sitting here, you're actually increasing the temperature in the neighborhood. And this Ben Franklin is completely surrounded by houses. So right in the center of that, there are houses all the way around. Right in the center, you have this just sun just beating down and radiating and off of this asphalt. Redeveloping this playground will actually reduce some of that heat. And what was it, 2 summers ago, they were talking about how many deaths happened in the city of Milwaukee, and how many people don't have access to air conditioning and cooler places. This is kind of a natural cooling. You increase how much green space you have, and it's like a natural cooling. It will start cooling down the neighborhoods. So not to say that you won't need air conditioning, it's just it'll kind of decrease the temperature. It'll just decrease the temperature. That's it.
Nisha, I know you kind of just explained this in that discussion, but can you just explain heat island effect, how and why it makes it warmer?
So heat island effect is when the sun beats down, it, you know, anything that's, as we all know, black, dark colors attract the sunlight and increases the temperature. So that that heat that radiates and rises off of the asphalt gets trapped. It gets trapped underneath, shall we say, like the clouds and things like that, and it just keeps cycling, and just like a plastic bag on top of something, or a dome or something on top of something. So the more spaces that you have that are radiating that heat up, we're increasing the temperature of the neighborhoods. And I mean, climate change. It's climate change. We're increasing the heat in a sense in those spaces, and the more that we can reduce that by in implementing more green spaces, implementing, green infrastructure and things like that, reducing how much, sunlight is reflecting off of these dark spaces. And it absorbs it holds heat. The asphalt, there have been videos of people actually dropping eggs on top of asphalt when the heat is really hot and it's frying. So if you imagine that, and you multiply that by the number of spaces, and then you add that space into a condensed area where there's houses. So it's like that heat is being trapped right there.
Why y'all looking at our school?
So it's not just the heat being absorbed, but it also is the heat being released, and both of them together make it.
Yeah.
I actually really want to speak really quickly on kind of my experience coming to this space. To briefly talk about where I'm from, I'm in the area near UWM, Upper East Side. I have family in Bayview, but I've only been to the northwest side of Milwaukee within the last year. So coming to this playground, this asphalt space was the first time that I had seen it. And the first thing that I noticed there that I think we might have touched on a little bit is one, the slant of the ground going down and the water going into the street. And the second thing I noticed was, and you can see it from above here, but the blacktop being very, very uneven where those cracks are. And then the water pools in those cracks and then kind of permeates that, causing more cracking. So that's just something I noticed coming up on this space for the first time that I just wanted to bring up, that I think when there is kind of a green space put in there, that'll help some of the pooling of the water to not really be there.
Yeah, it will. And then, like Yvonne just said, this space is used for, it's a rec site during the summer for the kids. So they have activities, all year round. This space needs to be able to be used all year round for the students for play and for learning. So, yeah. So the redevelopment will help, and it'll reduce. So it's a multifaceted thing that's happening with just the redevelopment happening. So then here's another image of the playground, and here's actually an image of how Ben Franklin will be redeveloped. So like I said, it's not the entire playground being, asphalt being removed. It's just removing and where that water is pooling and sloping, and the green space. Well, if you want to point to that green space that's on the kind of like the right side in the corner, down where the playground area, where the basketball courts and stuff are. So that's where the water kind of pools, and that's where when the playground was designed, the water would slope and go towards the drain. So there will be just that green space will also be a reduction on how much water flows into that drain and how much runoff comes off of that playground. So reducing how fast, reducing how much water goes into that drain, and also helping with some of the flooding. The more of these projects that we put in, not one project can help, completely end the flooding, but it can reduce. The more projects that we put in can reduce how much water goes into our drains when we have those heavy downpours, to help with cleaning, to help reduce flooding, so things like that. So this is the plan for Ben Franklin. And as you'll see, some of those markings are still left on the playground because, students do use them, or they're an opportunity for students to be taught, how to use them. So some of those are left on the playground.
Where would you like me to point again or show on the video?
One second, I was about to say the video. You can stop right there. So headed to the corner. Yep, headed to the
Further
back.
Further back.
Yeah.
That corner.
Right there. Stop right there. So that's the space where the water tends to flow in the drain. The sewer drain is. So that's where the most of the green space will be. So like I said, not completely removing all the asphalt, just helping to reduce and slow down the flow of that water that runs off of the asphalt.
Mhm. And as we're going, I think everyone can see some of these icons, one up in the right here. And then if we go back to the previous slide, there's one in the corner that would be kind of placed along these sidewalks. And this one, I can talk on that more later once we start talking about the factory A.O. Smith. And then this one is related to kind of some of our native pollinators because the orchard oriole is one of those.
Just picking up right where you left off, as we were leaving Ben Franklin and heading down Nash toward 27th, we came upon this house. And so, upon approaching it and walking by it, it looked like it was going through a nice renovation. So, I had asked Will, I said, well, what do you see, when you look at this house? And he, he noted that, well, the windows are boarded up. I said, yeah, but what else do you see? Well, they just poured a new driveway. I said, okay, well, what else do you see? So kind of got to me. I said, well, it looked like pretty new windows. And then I pointed out the new treated wood on the porch, the light fixture. And so what was evident was this house was undergoing a considerable amount of renovation simultaneously. And when in comparison to a lot of the other properties that were around, there was one side of the street where it looked like it was definitely either potentially very elderly homeowners who could not upkeep their yards, or absentee landowner or property owners who were just having rental properties on the strip, but no real curb appeal, no care to porch presentation, no care to trimming the shrubs or the grass or anything like that. And so then it became very apparent that either somebody, came into some money, right? Or somebody from outside that community has invested in the property. So what does that do to the other people who do not have the resources to upgrade their properties at the same rate or capacity? So no one's livelihood should be stifled, but then at the same time, no one else's livelihood should be squelched out either. So it was a real moment. And Will, what you want to share some of what your observations were after that was pointed out to you?
Yeah, I put this on the map kind of as one of the earlier markings, kind of showing the street that this is down. And it was interesting because we took a look at one side of the street and we took a look at the other side of the street. And it's very obvious which houses are like this where they're being renovated. And it's very obvious which houses are not. And I think Brad spoke a lot to people coming in and buying up these houses and, putting in the new porch, putting in the new driveway. And we talked a lot about how, it raises the property tax of the overall area, and about how it's right that it's not necessarily sustainable for people to be able to also renovate their houses to this extent. So it makes it harder for people to live in this area. And I think that it really opened my eyes a lot to just kind of what the northwest side of Milwaukee even looks like, and some of the issues that they face in this neighborhood.
So then that was where it goes to, early 1900s, A.O. Smith moved into the area and continued their manufacturing, because A.O. Smith actually started in Walker's Point. And with the growing of the company in 1909, and building car frames for Ford, they had to move. So this space, this 140 acres that A.O. Smith was on, was enticing. And I mean, people followed their jobs. Neighborhoods and communities grow with economic growth. So back in the early, 1900s, when they moved in, like I said, Ben Franklin was on farmland, and it was a schoolhouse. So where people live, you know, they bring their families. So there needs to be, you know, there needs to be a school, there needs to be grocery stores. Like there's all kind of economic growth that happens when industry moves in, and there's all kind of economic decline when industry moves out. So right now, what we're seeing is part of industry moving out. Because in the 60s, A.L. Smith, that area went from being predominantly German to predominantly African American. And like I said, where the jobs are, people, community, you know, community thrives. And when the community has work, has money, has, you know, economics, that they're going to live where they, you know, close to work, or try to at least. You know, it wasn't until, you know, highways and things got introduced that people started driving as far as they did to go to work. And then businesses started moving as well. So then you have to, you know, go where your money is. But the picture down here shows in the early 40s, when A.L. Smith moved, they were one of the largest manufacturers, industry manufacturers in the city of Milwaukee at the time. So they were number 2 actually to Alice Chandler, which was in West Dallas. So being one of those, here's a group picture of what it looked like in the early 20s after they moved there. And then, you know, all these homes, we'll show some photos going down 27th Street. We noticed that a lot of the homes, the architecture is the same. The shall we say, the immigrants that moved into this area, they were German. So it was German architecture. So they had to build all these homes because people needed homes to live in. So the area really took, you know, had a big boom when not Alice Chandler, I'm sorry, A.L. Smith moved in and increased their business. So this is just a picture of the front portion of the house, like Brad was talking about. The new porch, new windows. You can tell that at some point someone cut the grass, like things are changing. And in this area, we can see that things are continuing to change. With just in general, these green infrastructure projects, things are changing. These projects aren't cheap, you know, they cost. So things are being done. Different industries are trying to come into the area, and the city's making it so that industry is wanting to come back to the area, because the area we do need, you know, it needs economic growth. The community surrounding it right now needs, need good jobs. They need good careers that are sustainable, that can be, you know, that can maintain a family. They can, you know, support themselves. That area does need that. The city of Milwaukee needs that, regardless of where you live. So there is a change in the community that is happening. And this is just one of the things that we've noticed. And because there isn't the economy isn't where it should be right now, so notice that whomever purchased this home is doing a lot of work. We all know that it's not someone who has been in the community. This is someone that's from outside the community that's doing this work.
Well, Nisha,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, is that the house across the street from the school, kind of?
It's kind of kitty corner from there. It's not directly, you know, yeah, it's like, yep, it is.
I don't know the exact address, but actually, I believe that house was purchased by a young man who grew up there. It's his family house.
Okay.
He actually is, I believe, don't let me say that because I'm not sure. But anyway, it's his family house. And he moved back and reclaimed the house. If that's the same house, he actually reclaimed, it was in the paper. It was in the Journal Sentinel. that he reclaimed the house, and his intent is to help build that neighborhood back up. By help, I believe. Let me say it. I believe he himself is in real estate, but he has committed to renovating that house and helping other folks who maybe rent to purchase homes or help other homeowners. Now I know there is a house over there like that. Go ahead, Brad.
Oh, no, I just love it. Now look, I'm gonna be the first one to say I stereotyped. Okay.
Yeah, but go ahead. I'll just chime in. Don't take time.
No, I stereotyped. I really stereotyped.
We both did.
But at the same time, it's a beautiful example of what needs to happen, right? Because the stereotype. Yeah. That's a great story. I love that. And that's exactly what needs to happen. Come back and reclaim. Don't let family legacy just go in disrepair. So and it's often the thing that puts people at odds when the elders pass on.
Right.
When things aren't left in proper order, the estate, the real estate is always the bone of contention. And you have people that want to sell it off and get the quick money, but don't want to invest in the property and address what it needs. So I think that's a beautiful, beautiful story.
Absolutely. And your point, Brad, and the story that Ronisha told is true. I mean, that's just the truth and fact of the matter that is occurring. Mm-hmm. I own 3 properties on my block. I live in one, my children live in the other 2. I can't tell you how many calls I get per day or cards wanting to buy my property. So those investors are here. That is true.
Very true.
So you're right about it. It just happens, I think that one is probably the house that the young man came back to reclaim. I'm not absolutely sure, but there is one over there.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, what?
If wherever he is, I wish he was on the call, Yeah.
Because that is a beautiful thing. And that, like you said, that's what needs to happen. Because a lot of those people that did work for A.L. Smith bought those homes in that area. They worked, they retired, and that's the thing. When you work so hard and you purchase something, you have ownership. You want to pass it on. You don't want it to just fall apart. That was what you worked so hard for. Your family to have a space to be and to meet. So that is.
Can I just chime in one more thing real quickly?
Go ahead.
Yes, A.L. Smith provided jobs for people to purchase homes. Everybody at A.L. Smith did not live in this community. Everybody Black that worked at A.L. Smith did not live in this community. Black people worked other places. They didn't depend just on A.L. Smith. I worked at Alice Chalmers out of high school. I was a secretary, but I took the bus to Alice Chalmers.
Yeah.
So I think we have to write some of these stories that people want to hang on to because it's the history that's been painted. Yes, a lot of people who worked at A.L. Smith did live in these communities, but everybody there did not. So everybody that owned a house here did not work at A.L. Smith. They worked other places.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think when we talk about the economy, we need to talk about it in the sense that it was a working class community. And all of the manufacturing dried up all over the city.
Yep.
Alice Chalmers is in West Dallas. There's a health club there now.
Yeah.
American Motors was on East Capitol.
Yeah.
It's Walmart now. So people worked in industry, but it just wasn't A.L. Smith. Yes, A.L. Smith played a big part in this community in terms of what we call the middle class. But I think you had it on here, and it may still be up. We need to talk about, what it is now, how we get it better. And I'll stop. Bye.
No, you're absolutely right. That's the thing. It's like there was some history there. I mean, it was a place for people to work, and yeah, I mean, my great grandmother worked at Alice Chandler, and she didn't live anywhere near. We were downtown, but it wasn't near. She had to catch the bus to get to work as well. I know several other aunts and uncles who, worked in different industries, and they weren't in the neighborhoods that they lived in. But it's just like you said, those jobs, all that industry all together, and the industry in Milwaukee, which allowed people to have those, buy homes and live a middle class life, they're gone. So the neighborhood in itself, in a whole, when those jobs, all of those jobs left, the neighborhoods around the city of Milwaukee all took a hit. Not just the middle class Black African Americans. It was in general, everyone took a hit. Every culture took a hit, every community took a hit. But what we see now is on top of industry leaving and people not being able to maintain their homes, now you have flooding happening. You have issues with water damage on damaging homes and things like that. So that also takes a toll on the neighborhood. You don't have a job to sustain the home, or someone who you're renting the home from is not sustaining the home. Now you have damage, water damage that you can't afford, or you don't even know where to begin or how to fix or how to repair, things like that. So now the home starts to become inhabitable. So then you're forced to move. You're forced to move out of the home if it's inhabitable. Now, what does that do to the neighborhood? Now you have people that move out of the neighborhood because they can't live in the home because the home is inhabitable. What happens to that house? Or you have landlords that are not paying attention or just not wanting to do the necessary upgrades to make the home or keep it presentable or habitable. There's just a lack all the way around. What do you do? Well, now what? That's where the conversation needs to go. It's like, what do you do now? What does the city do now? So, that was just kind of some of the stuff that we seen as we walked away from the school towards 27th Street. Will you want to advance a few slides?
Yeah, I brought us back to this slide to kind of give context for where we're at. I just kind of marked down, I think that one of the street views that we're showing is down each side of 24th and Nash, but it's all kind of along this line on Nash Street. And then yes, I'm going to advance to where we were last.
You can go to the next slide from there.
Wait, this one back here.
All right. So yeah, so we talked about those two different sides of the streets and how you see, a lot of this is due to economic decline and just people not being able to sustain their properties. So then they have investors that are coming in and purchasing them. You have landlords that are not maintaining them, and it's just a whole. There's a sense of ownership when you purchase a home. There are a lot of people that don't have that sense of ownership, but that's a kind of a economic decline in the snowball. It's kind of goes downhill from there.
Yes, for a moment, I would just like to just talk on kind of something that Yvonne said, because we're about to talk about industry in this area. One thing that I have right here is a glass water heater, that kind of icon. It might get more simplified as things go, but I was trying to bring in a lot of imagery of when actually Black people were working for A.O. Smith, because Yvonne is right in that, especially for the first 60 years of them kind of being an organization, they had very, very racist policies, which is something I learned when I was doing some research. And so here we are on that next slide.
So yeah, so that the building in the background, the taller building, is one of the buildings that are still kind of a landmark. A lot of people that remember A.O. Smith remember that building. So if you look in the bottom, there's a older picture when A.O. Smith was making those car frames. That's how they, people would ride by, and that's what you would see in the yard, would be those car frames stacked up. And then A.O. Smith on the building behind it. So that building that's still there kind of represents what was on that 140 acres, because A.O. Smith used to be on 140 acres, and what a lot of the industry used to be in the city of Milwaukee. Yeah, because Alice Chandler in West Dallas, it's no longer that building is no longer there. It's something else now. A lot of the industry buildings that used to be there are no longer there. This is one of the few that are still around from when the city of Milwaukee had a huge industrial, shall you say, following in a sense.
Probably the last soldier standing, I would imagine, is what's Rockwell, what used to be Alan Bradley years
Alan
ago.
Bradley, yeah. So like I said, one of the few that are still standing. And I mean, a lot of people don't even know, people that younger, I would say probably a little bit younger than me, don't know that A.O. Smith and then Tower Automotive bought them out, but they weren't around that long to even really have an effect. So you want to head to the next slide?
Yep, I can head right to the next slide. I also just want to say, during kind of researching things for these icons, learned a lot about A.O. Smith having a huge contribution to the oil and gas industries, which is why I have kind of a gas pump here. And then also speaking on what Brad and Wilnisha have been echoing earlier, is I've got some numbers down, and there was a big growth in population for 30 years. This area went from about 8,000 people to over 100,000 people. And since 1968, about 91,000 manufacturing jobs were lost. So that was just something I really wanted to write down and bring to light, because it's something that really surprised me when I was doing research, just learning about A.O. Smith.
So then there you go. You see, have all those numbers go back to that heat island effect. You go from having 180,000 to 100, and you're increasing how many people are in the area. We know that when we start getting a lot of people in a room, the temperature increases. So now you add to that heat island, you add the sun beating down on the concrete, and just all those people that are just in that area. Yeah, the temperature can really get pretty hot. Brad, you want to speak to this next slide?
Before Brad jumps in, I just wanted to say really quick, Wilnisha, I think you said 80,000. It was 8,000, and it increased to 100,000. So it increased over tenfold.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, it was the eights. It was the eights.
Yes.
But, even go back one slide real quick, Will. All right. So on the corner of 27th and Nash, looking, if we were almost down the street in front of the Rainbow Stripe building, which is the daycare center. And I recall, Nisha, you had mentioned that daycare had been there for a number of years, even.
Yeah, and it used to be part of A.O. Smith. It was actually a part of A.O. Smith.
It was the A.O. Smith Union Hall.
Yeah, so it was the Union Hall that was actually that building.
Oh, wow. But the point I wanted to make was from from that corner of 27th and Nash, right across the street from that daycare, all the way to the next slide where you see the tree growing around the banister of the front porch of that house. What would you say? That was about what is that, about 2 blocks? 3 blocks? How long?
Probably about 2, maybe
About
almost
2 blocks. So what's interesting is there was no covering, no shade covering for like that 2 blocks or so until we got to this tree. And I thought it was very interesting that Nisha brought up the fact that there's water there because that tree has flourished. And I'm sure the water table underneath that house is what those roots are stretching towards. And I just thought it was a very interesting metaphor for, in seeking out water, it's literally uprooting the foundation of someone's home. And and we kind of look at the context of flooding, right? When water is looking for somewhere to be, it may uproot foundations, right? So it just seemed like a kind of an interesting metaphor, just based on the fact that it's been there so long, it has taken over the foundation of that home. But then also too, the observation was that along that stretch, there's a bus stop, there's no bus shelter. And the main crux of it, when we talk about the beginning prompt of the walk or the talk itself, the idea of having children have safe access to play and being able to learn while playing, and then also being able to access those safe spaces safely. So, something that would be necessary would be at best a bus shelter that could offer information about the bioswales in the area, and then also a stop sign with maybe a flashing light and a crosswalk.
Yeah.
Right on 27th, crossing over to Melvina, so that children, their families, or their friends have safe access across that street. Because forcing someone to walk all the way to the intersection just across something that's like a half a block away, it seems a little neglectful of the community there. So I don't know, Miss Yvonne, what kind of things would have to be put into place to propose some of those kind of things. And even if it was about implementing some sort of artwork project to it, some of the icons that Will has designed to maybe spray down through chalk stenciling, that could be a concept for a painted crosswalk that would inspire some foot traffic and also inspire slower drivers,
So you want to head to the next slide, Will?
Right. And as he's going through the next slide, I just want to mention that there is a daycare on the east side of that street as well. And if you think about how the blocks, 27th Street from Capitol down to Hopkins, there's only one through street, meaning you can come from Ben Franklin and go all the way over, and that is Vienna, because Nash stops, Melvina doesn't go straight across. So that, that is a good point there, Brad.
Yeah, Brad, what was that crossing? What was that street again that you said?
That was 27th in Melvina.
Yeah,
no, that's Nash.
Oh no, he was saying like as far as like the way we walked, it would be 27th and like to get to Novina Park, like the way that we walked, it would be 27th and Melvina to have something there so that so that people can cross there.
Okay, but just to let you know, you can come down Vienna and there is a stoplight at Vienna and 27th that will take you to the park. Okay,
so instead of crossing at Novina, cross at Vienna.
Yeah, you would come on the backside of the park.
Okay. So y'all take it back.
When the park is renovated, you would actually, you walk down Vienna, you would actually end up at the parking lot of the park. So you can access the park from Ben Franklin the back of the playground, from the playground down Vienna to the stoplight on 27th and Vienna, and then onward. That's the only street that goes straight across. It's
Okay.
a through street. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we didn't walk that way. We went the block down Nash and then across.
Well, that's okay, but your point is well taken, and we should do that. I think your point about the markings should happen, and there is a safe streets strategy in the process. So I think that all of these comments are good ones, and they should be forwarded on to the planning.
Yes.
Well,
I agree.
Yeah. So as we walked a little bit further and get across 27th, and like we said, that's anybody who's gone down 27th Street knows that that's a very busy, can be a very reckless space. So we're talking about connecting these two spaces, because you have a space that's going to be redeveloped in Franklin Heights, and now you have a space in Century City Triangle, which the divide is 27th Street. So having a way to, we all know that Milwaukee has been called a very segregated city, the most segregated city in the country at some points. So to promote, coming together and not in less segregation, just trying to figure out how to allow those children from each side of 27th Street to be able to have access to both spaces safely. So crossing 27th onto Novina, here we're now going into spaces where, like, when I was an intern with MMSD, promoting rain barrels and rain gardens in residential areas for the 30th Street corridor. Here's one of the barrels that was put in and was actually painted by residents and children from the neighborhood. And Miss Yvonne, you can speak to that summer. that was a fun summer.
You can speak to it. Well, Nisha, you were there. You were there when we tried to sand that rain barrel and prime it and paint it all in the same hot day.
Yep.
It was a labor of love. We learned a lot of things. Go ahead, well, Nisha, you're doing great.
We learned a lot, and the children, they just see the paint. They're like, oh, we're gonna paint. They just
right.
trying to teach them a little patience about it. But that was a fun summer, and I really commend the residents in the neighborhood for getting out, and I thank you guys. We were learning some things. We were passing on information as we learned it, and that's what it should be.
Come close to your mic, Ronisha. Come close to your mic. We're losing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we were learning some things that summer and passing information on, and really commend you guys on, like you said, environmental stewardship. We have to teach the youth and even adults, how to maintain and protect, and why it's important, the importance of maintaining these type of projects and things. So, but yeah, that summer that was really fun, and we have a few pictures here of the paintings and some of the artwork that was done and hung, and to keep it in the forefront of everyone's mind. It's not just a moment where, oh, we did that activity and now we're done. No, we have to keep keep all of this information in the forefront, because it's still happening. It's still recurring. It's a recurring thing. These projects need maintenance, and everyone needs to have an ownership and a buy-in to all of these projects, because these are all these projects and things they're not just for show. They're actually for our sustainability, and we need to sustain them for that reason. And yes. So it's important to let the youth and anyone in these neighborhoods know why these projects are important.
If I can jump in, Brad, you might like this. We use art as a strategy to teach environmental stewardship in this neighborhood. We have an activity in the summer. It's called Art in the Park. We've been doing it for about 15 years. And now we're focusing on the environmental aspect of it. In your lower right-hand corner, that was the 2019 project. Of course, last year we didn't have an outdoor project. But the theme of that project was bees and butterflies pollinators.
Yes.
At the other end of that basketball court is a rain garden. And so the children were able to plant natural, not natural, what native plantings back there. And they create, the children actually designed this, and they were prompted. And so they are taught about, water. So as Wanisha said, everything that we do here has a purpose. It's not just do and let go and forget.
No.
Oh yeah. You walk up on this park, it hugs you.
It does. It does.
I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Even about whatever they do with the playground at Ben Franklin, make it a park of play and learning. Because I mean, coming down the street, especially after the hike through the asphalt desert, this was a very inviting space to come to at the end of the walk. It was like a big exhale, especially some of the things that we were discussing once we left Ben Franklin. You know what I mean? And so it was just kind of a nice oasis at the end of the block. But I know you can speak to some of the greater project itself on the next slide, Wanisha.
All right, head to the next one. So here's an aerial view of Novina Park. This space will also be redeveloped, and I mean, a lot of people would say, well, there's a ton of green already, but just because you have green doesn't mean that green is actually serving its purpose. If the soils are compacted, they're not able to absorb the water like it should. If the plants that are there aren't the right type of plants, they can't pull that water down into the ground. And because of the industry that was there, this space was formerly a brownfield. So you just can't throw grass seeds on top of something and say, it's a park space. So with the help of the city, this space, the portion that is Novina Park was redeveloped so that brownfield area, there is a divide, there's a fence, because not all of it was done, but that portion of the children are playing on has been remediated. It has been removed and capped and things, so it's to make it a safer space for them.
Wanisha, can I just jump in real quick? Short.
Sure.
Where you see the 4 square and the play area and the basketball court and the walkway going through, those actually were homes were there. Where the 4 squares are, there actually was a school building there, which was called the Ben Franklin Annex. And that was before they actually built the annex to the actual Ben Franklin building. But there was a school building there, and there were homes there. When Tower moved in, they purchased all of those homes, tore them down to create parking spaces. Now, for those of you who do not know me, I've been here 48 years. So what we did is we organized and we stopped the parking lot. That's why, that's why you see that area to the west, which is at the top of the picture. We stopped it. We, the residents, had this play area built. The 4 square, to your point, Brad, do kids still do that? It was a tennis court. But over time, people stopped using the tennis court. So we took that out and put in the play area. And children were also interested in having a safe place to ride their bikes. So we would have bike rodeos there. So as Wanisha said, everything does have a purpose, and some of it has a dual purpose.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that that space did have homes and a school building. And at the top of the screen, I just saw that Tori is on the call. Those were brownfields. Those were parking to the west of there were parking lots, which were brownfields, and they did do remediation. So yes, that's correct.
So as you can see, I mean, there are people in the neighborhood that you know, that care about what's in their neighborhoods, and as we all should. And that's that sense of ownership. That's that sense of, you know, wanting to have community, and that's something that you know, with economic decline tends to go out the window with a lot of people. And there are other things that tend to happen in our communities, but you know, having a sense of ownership and pride about your neighborhood is, you know, where you live and where you grow up. I mean, where I live now, I didn't grow up, but I love my neighborhood that I grew up in. So it is. It's a huge thing. So like this park space is, like you said, Brad, it hugs you. When you get to this park, it does. It's the space where you know, you drive up to it or you walk up to it, or it does. It hugs you. And that's how it should be. That's a neighborhood. That's where a neighborhood should be. You move into a neighborhood, you should feel like you're home. So, you know, having that, you know, sense of belonging in the space. I'm gonna head to the next slide. So this is the portion that we're talking about that is not, it's still considered a brownfield space. So the park is to the east of the, well, if you want to point to the fenced in, like rail area that's kind of right at the curve, right where the street kind of curves. That's Melvina. So right where that street curves. So the redevelopment there will be, you know, Yvonne, if you want to speak to the redevelopment, because I really haven't been a part of that process.
Well, that's a whole meeting in itself, but it's a $1.6 million if we get the rest of the money. I think Justin is on as well. Tori is on, they're on the team. Without the visuals, but the park will be completely redone. It will definitely have a green footprint. There will be bioswales, dog parks. We're going to relocate the basketball courts to the southern end. We will include state-of-the-art play area, community garden. Justin, I don't know how many people you want to respond, but if Justin is on the call, Justin, can you speak very quickly to the engineering portion of it, to I can't even think of the word, to make the water go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, so just real quick.
Hey everybody, I'm 74, so I always use that as my excuse for not being able to think quick on my feet.
So just real quick to Yvonne's point, so this is Justin Haggerty with Reflow, and environmental engineer. So this project is to Yvonne's interest and the neighborhood's interest. We're trying to capture as much water as we can from the surrounding streets and manage it sustainably on the grounds of the expanded park. And so that's really exciting. We're going to be capturing as much water from the surrounding area as possible, so it becomes more of an environmental community asset, as well as providing recreational space for the neighborhood as well.
See, I know when to call on my resources. And as far as the poison is concerned, Tori Kress is also on the call. Tori, you want to say a few words about the remediation of that?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I think Nisha mentioned it too in this graphic. Behind the fence has been remediated. We were able to save those couple of trees that look small in this picture. The area that looks kind of large, the stretch along Hopkins, is the area that has not yet been remediated. So along with the expanded renovated park, built into that is remediation of this remaining area. So we'll be managing soil. There are portions of it, we've done testing, so we know the areas that we need to be sure to properly manage and remove some from the site, manage some on site, and then some of it will be capped by clean soil, and possibly, I think some of it is actually capped by the basketball courts and some other amenities. So yeah, that was I think everyone pretty much got it. Got it right.
Thank you, Tori. Yes.
And I'm going to make one more plug so I can be quiet. Will and his group, the interns with Artworks, also Century City Neighborhood Association is a partner with them, and they've also had a project to identify some art possibilities for this space. Thank you all for allowing me to take that time.
No problem. I mean, you're the reason, you're the reason why that the community is what it is. I will say that. And I'm going to put that out there because I really think highly of you, Yvonne, and I appreciate everything that you've done and every time that you speak. And I don't care. You can call it a shameless plug if you want to. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And so, yeah, so there are things that are happening, redevelopments and changes that, like I said, just want the changes to, the people in the communities to be able to enjoy the changes and see that they're not just for beautification. There's actually, there are job opportunities in there. Green infrastructure needs maintenance. There's more green infrastructure is being put in, so people need to be trained. People need to be certified. People need to actually be able to work in this industry. So, even bringing it just bringing the attention to the jobs and the benefits and things. So it's a whole, green infrastructure is not just, it's an ecosystem to me. There's a whole 360 that can happen around green infrastructure. We just need to make people aware of it, and they need to be able to have access to the information. So talking about it, putting, having opportunities for people to learn more about it is always a great thing because it's an ecosystem in itself.
Now, Nisha, is there any collaborations with Urban Ecology Center at all, or Haven Woods, or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
The short answer is yes. And we're working on actually getting another person trained through the Urban Ecology Center. I think Denitra is on the call from Northwest Side CDC, and I believe she took the urban ecology training to bring nature to the neighborhoods.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are linked with them.
Beautiful. That's about all the meat in the sandwich, ain't it?
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for listening. And we hope that, from this, we can, gain some progress on both communities and surrounding communities around Milwaukee, understanding what green infrastructure is and how it can benefit everyone in a whole.
We're still tentatively, following through with the intentions of the breadcrumbing with some of the icons that Will has designed. And I guess down the road, whatever needs to take place about a bus shelter sign and a crosswalk, and then maybe a painted crosswalk that has some of the icons featured, in it, so that at least people driving through will take notice and be more inclined. Anytime you see bright colors next to a street, it kind of implies that children might be close by. So
Yep.
yeah, it's just something to think about.